One thing that's come up a lot recently in my coaching sessions is that people seem to be really worried about giving longer answers when somebody asks them a question out of the blue. Like, they've got so much interesting stuff that they want to share, but the pressure of trying to speak to somebody in real time just kind of gets to them. So to avoid that, they just stick with what they know. Short, safe answers. And sure, they're able to respond to the question, but they're actually capable of so much more, but they feel like they can't do it. And that's hard, right? To feel like you have to restrict yourself in English just to get by. So this is what I tell them. Let's get cracking. Welcome to the Brit Speak Pod, the podcast designed to help you feel more confident when you communicate in English. Hey up, mate. How you doing today? I'm not too bad. Thanks for asking and welcome to episode 117 of the Brit Speak Pod, where today I'm going to help you stop giving short, safe answers. I'm going to tell you what you should be doing instead. But yeah, if you're new around here, my name is Dan. I'm a CELTA qualified British English teacher, communication coach, and my goal is to help you feel more confident when you're communicating in English. So, before we get into today's episode, I've got something I want to share with you. The Brit Speak Summer Sprint is now live. So you may or may not know, but I've got a coaching program called the Brit Speak Speaking Confidence Bootcamp, right? It's a 12-week, one-to-one program for people who understand English but struggle to speak, right? It includes private lessons, video tutorials, daily practice, weekly feedback, and, loads more, right? Anyway, for this summer, I'm doing what's called the Summer Sprint, right? There's 5 spaces available. And for those first 5 people that join, you're going to get a discount on the entire course. But this ends on August 1st. So if you are somebody that feels like you struggle to speak and you're not really sure what to do, check the details in the show note, send me an email, and we'll talk about it. But like I said, the first 5 people before August 1st are going to get a nice discount. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, check it out. Nice. So that's the admin out of the way. Now, let's talk about giving short, safe answers, right? So let's imagine a situation, shall we? Maybe you're at work or you're in some social event and somebody asks you a question that you didn't prepare for, right? You didn't expect. It's kind of out of the blue. And you've got a lot of information you want to share. Maybe you're at work, you're really good at your job, you've got loads of good stuff that you want to tell that person. But for whatever reason, you just struggle to express that idea in English. Maybe you don't know the words. Maybe you just don't feel confident in organizing the information. For whatever reason, you don't feel confident to express that idea in English. And then your brain just is like, all right then, panic. So this happens a lot at work, social situations, whatever, right? Your brain panics because, oh my God, we've got to share this complicated thing in English. All right, fair enough. So what your brain probably will do at that point is default, how can we escape this situation as quickly as possible? Fight or flight, as they call it. Flight is usually the choice, right? So what loads of people do is they give the shortest answer possible. And I understand why people do it, right? A short answer, it means that you responded, you did what you needed to do. The minimum possible response, done, nice. And it feels safe, because short answers are easy to rehearse and not much can go wrong, You're only saying 5 or 6 words, there's way less chance for you to make a mistake and look like an idiot, right? And it's probably easier to control because there's not so many moving parts. There's probably not that much difficult grammar. There's not much connection happening. So you're going to feel safer. You're that's easier to do, right? You're more in control. You're less likely to make a mistake. And when you're under pressure, that stuff seems like a good idea, right? Of course it does. Let's be honest, none of us want to make mistakes. None of us want to feel like we don't have control of what we're talking about. We all want to feel safe. So of course, that's the logical thing that your brain is going to do to kind of protect you when you're in this difficult situation, right? And like I said, it does do what it needs to do. You do respond. You don't just ignore the question. You say something, right? But that is the minimum possible response, right? And it does create some problems. Like, yeah, you answered the question, but it does kind of give off some vibes, you know? First of all, short answers will kill a conversation dead. You know, imagine somebody says, oh, you know, how nice to meet you. What do you do for a living? I work in an office. Well, it's true, but it doesn't really give me much to work with, does it? Like, come on, give me something to work with. So your short answers are just killing conversations. You might sometimes feel like, oh, I struggle in conversations. I can't keep my conversations moving. I don't know what to do. This is probably a big reason why that keeps happening to you. Another problem is that if you always give the short, safe answer, especially like at work, people are never going to really see what you're capable of. You're probably absolutely awesome at your job, and you've got all of this useful information, and in your native language, you would be killing it. But because you've got to put that through the lens of English and that pressure that exists to be perfect to show that you're good at your job, it stops people from seeing what you're actually capable of in your job, right? Now, I'm sure you got that job because you're good at the job, right? You're good at it, not because your English is good, you know? But if you always depend on how good your English is, people can never see how good you actually are, you know? How much you can share, how much value you can bring. Nobody ever gets to see that. And they start feeling like, oh, maybe they're only this good at their job, you know? Maybe they're not as good at their job as we thought. And that's terrifying, you know? And that can happen, you know? It's not trying to scare you or anything like that, but it makes sense, right? So, and the other thing that can happen is when you give short answers, it can make it feel like you are not interested in talking to that person. You're completely disinterested. Like you're saying the short answer to not be rude, but you're trying to exit the conversation as quickly as you can. And it can be very dismissive, or you can look very disinterested. And it can come across really cold, to be honest. Now, in your head, you're trying to protect yourself and stay in control, but to the other person, it looks like you don't want to talk to him. You know? So that's something else you got to think about, because communication is a two-way street. It's not just about you. So that is kind of the bigger problem behind giving short, safe answers all the time. And then, of course, that has a knock-on effect, right? If you only ever give short answers, people never get to see the real you. They never get to hear your opinions or your ideas. They never really get to see what you're capable of. And that is one of the biggest, saddest things about people I work with. They're awesome people, so much interesting stuff to share, so many interesting bits of information and opinions, but they never put it out into the world. And that's everybody else's loss, you know? So that sucks. That's one of the biggest problems with this whole thing. And also, like, if you do always give a short answer, people are going to think like, oh, John really doesn't like me. He doesn't talk to me at all. He doesn't want to talk to me. So, you know, if I get that feeling that somebody doesn't like me and doesn't want to talk to me, I'm not going to bother trying to talk to him. And then that could lead to you feeling like isolated or excluded. Even in a group conversation, nobody actually talks to you, asks your opinion, because you never give it. And let's be honest, living in another country or working in a second language like English is already pretty isolating. So you don't want to make that worse, you know? It's sad, but it's kind of true. And I don't want that for you, right? I really don't want that for you. So you kind of need to understand a bit of a mindset shift, okay? Short answers are just a form of protection. They're actually hurting you more in the long run. In the short term, it might help you feel safe, and it might protect you from that fear of making a mistake, and it might protect you from the fear of communicating with somebody else and not being perfect, right? I hear it all the time. People are terrified of not being perfect. When I've said it 100 times before, perfection is not real. I make mistakes, so why can't you? That's a topic for another time, but understand that although short answers feel safe, they are hurting you. They are not your friend. They are not good in the long term. So you need to get rid of that idea. You need to be willing to get out of that comfort zone and try a different way. And the good news is it's really actually easy to start giving extended or expanded answers. See, I made a mistake. I was going to say extended, and then I was going to say expanded, and then I put them together and mixed them up, and now I sound like an idiot. But I'm not going to edit that. I make a mistake, and that's good for you. You can see that I made a mistake. It's life. Never mind. So, when you want to start giving answers that are longer, then there's a solution, right? I always teach the +1 method, right? So answer +1. And this is a really easy place to get started. So you answer the question as you would usually, your usual short answer, if you like, then +1. And the +1 means either plus a reason that you think that, or plus an example of what you're talking about, or plus one extra piece of information. Now, you could add +2, +3, +4, whatever, it doesn't matter. But minimum +1, okay? So you give your answer, you add your +1, your reason, your example, your extra piece of information. And then don't just sit in awkward silence. Ask a follow-up question. This is where you ask a question to the other person about what you've just said, right? So the plan is your answer, your +1, and then give the question back, right? Sounds easy, but I bet most of you don't do it. So this is something that you're going to need to practice. And I'll give you some examples of kind of how it looks, right? So let's imagine somebody asks me, Dan, how was your weekend? It's a social event, or it's like small talk at work or whatever, right? And maybe before, I would say something like, yeah, it was all right, thanks. Now, that's my short, safe answer. I answered the question, but I killed the conversation dead. And they didn't get any information out of me. So, kind of a waste of time, right? But if I use my +1 method, it sounds more like this. Yeah, it was all right, thanks. We went shopping to IKEA to get some stuff for the kitchen, But actually, it was really busy. I don't know. But anyway, have you ever been to IKEA? How much better of an answer is that? I answered the question, I gave him some information, and then I asked him a question about that, what I just said. That keeps the conversation flowing. And it's not rocket science. There's nothing crazy going on. I'm not using any crazy grammar or academic vocabulary. I'm just adding that one extra bit. And then keeping the conversation moving by asking a question. I'll give you another example. Let's imagine we're at work and a colleague from another department is talking to me and they say, oh, what do you think about the project? And before, maybe I'd say something, yeah, it's going pretty well. Terrible answer. No information, nothing to work with. And their response is probably going to be something like, oh, okay, nice. End the conversation. Let's sit in silence. That's weird. Whereas if I use a +1 method, maybe it's going to sound something more like, well, yeah, it's actually going pretty well. We're making good progress. And recently, I'm especially enjoying working with the rest of the team. I think we're going to finish on schedule. What are you working on at the moment? It gives them a bit of extra information. I actually went +1. I gave them an example and, some extra information. And then I ask a question to keep it going. It's not rocket science, guys. It's really straightforward. Now, obviously, me telling you this, you probably think, yeah, that makes sense. But just like everything, when it comes to speaking practice, understanding it and being able to do it are not the same thing. So you're probably sick of hearing me say this, but you need to practice, right? And the way that you can practice this is very, very, very easy. You're going to go to a website called conversationstarters.com or any variation of this. There's a bunch of them. And what this website does, it'll generate a random question or a random speaking prompt, right? So you click a button and on the screen, it gives you something to talk about, right? So you're going to go to that website and you're going to press get a prompt or next or generate or whatever it says. I can't remember what it says. And then without preparation, you're going to try and answer for 30 to 60 seconds using the expansion technique, right? The +1 technique. And while you're doing that, you're going to take your phone and you're going to record your answer. Okay? Then once you've finished recording and you've finished speaking, you're going to listen to that recording just once. And I know you probably don't like your own voice, but, get over it. It'll be beneficial for you in the long run. Listen to it once and pick just one thing that you think you can improve. Maybe it's about the structure, maybe it's pronunciation, maybe you made a mistake, whatever it is, right? Just pick just one thing and then try again. That's it. That's the whole thing. Get a prompt, record yourself speaking for 30 seconds, listen to it once, pick something to improve and do it again. That's going to take you at best 5 minutes a day. If you can't find 5 minutes a day to practice speaking and you want to speak confidently, I can't help you. Unless you do it and put the effort in, it's never going to change, right? So I know it's easy to listen to a podcast like this and be like, oh, that makes sense, I'll do that, and then never actually do it. So don't do that. Today, try it and do it every day, a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. And when you're next in a real conversation, always think about the +1 and always remember to ask a question about it. Okay? Now, if that is interesting to you, like I said, this is something that I work with a lot of clients, this kind of stuff. And this is kind of what the BritSpeak Speaking Confidence Bootcamp is built on, right? Like I said, it's a 12-week program where you work with me one-on-one and I help you build your speaking confidence through frameworks and ideas and lots of practice and feedback and basically everything you need for 12 weeks to feel more confident. And as part of my summer sprint, I'm offering a discount and there's 5 spaces available and it ends on August 1st. Not the course, the sign up, right? So if you are interested in that and you want to work with me, all the details are in the show notes, so check it out. And I'd love to hear about, how you feel about speaking English and what you're struggling with. And yeah, we can talk about how it can help you. So get in touch and hopefully I'll see you in there sooner rather than later. But that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back again with another one really soon. Until then, look after yourself, mate. See you there.